AITA for telling my ex to be happy for me after I found my soulmate? I woke up one morning to find my girlfriend standing at the foot of the bed with a look I had never seen before, something between pity and a strange sense of freedom. Before I could ask what was wrong, she dropped the words that would echo in my head for months. I found my soulmate. The way she said it wasn't with guilt or sadness. She was excited, almost proud, as if she had just won an award and I was supposed to congratulate her. Her name was Marissa. We had been together for 3 years, living together for 1 year, and I truly believed we were on the path to marriage, kids, that whole life you imagine building step by step. She worked at a daycare downtown. I was in tech sales. We had routines, inside jokes, a cat named Biscuit that she picked out at an adoption fair. And on a Wednesday morning, everything I believed to be solid simply evaporated. She told me his name was Jared, that he worked security at the mall near her job. She said they had been talking for 2 months, and that she felt a connection with him unlike anything she had ever felt with anyone, including me. I asked if she had cheated on me. She seemed offended, as if I were the irrational one in the story, and replied, "It's not cheating when it's destiny." I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to understand how someone I shared my life with could transform a betrayal into something almost spiritual. That same day, she packed a suitcase, said she would be back later for the rest of her things, and before leaving, she turned and told me something I will never forget. "If you really loved me, you would be happy for me and my soulmate." The door closed, and I was left there staring at the empty space where she had been, with the feeling that someone had reached into my chest and ripped out everything that mattered. I didn't cry at that moment. I think the shock was too great, but that night, when it finally sank in, it hit hard. I called my brother, and he showed up with beer and pizza. He didn't give any speeches. He just stayed with me while I tried to explain how someone could leave like that, with so much certainty and so little regret. He said Marissa had always been a bit dramatic, a little too self-centered, and that maybe I was just too close to see it. Over time, I began to admit he might be right. Looking back, I remembered several moments when everything had to revolve around her feelings, her needs, her vision of how things should be. I used to call it intensity, passion. Today, I see it was something else. The following weeks became a blur of automatic routine, work, home, microwave dinner. I avoided our favorite restaurants, the walks we took on Sundays, any place that brought back too many memories. Friends tried to set me up with new people. They said the best way to get over someone was to meet someone else, but I wasn't ready. That sentence still hammered in my head. If you really loved me, as if my love were being tested, and I had failed for not celebrating my own abandonment. I thought letting her go without a fight made me mature, evolved, someone above all that. In reality, it just left me empty. She still sent me messages in the first few months, almost always practical things. Mail that arrived, questions about Biscuit, a lamp she had left behind. Every time her name lit up my phone screen, my stomach would sink. I would respond briefly, politely. I didn't ask about Jared. I didn't ask if she was happy. Part of me didn't want to know. Another part was terrified of the answer. One message in particular stood out. It was almost 2 a.m. on a Saturday when she asked if I remembered the night we adopted Biscuit. I didn't reply. I knew it was a test, an attempt to reopen something, to see if there was still a crack. Around the 4th month, I started to feel more like myself again, or at least a functional version of myself, without that constant pain. I joined a gym, started running, lost some weight, and grew a beard. I did all those post-breakup cliches that, surprisingly, actually help. My brother dragged me to a concert one Friday for an indie band I didn't even know. In the middle of the show, I realized I had gone 3 hours without thinking about Marissa. It felt like a silent victory. One Saturday, I stopped at a coffee shop near my apartment, one of those places with exposed brick and overpriced coffee. The woman in front of me in line turned around, smiled, and said, "You have the look of someone who can't decide between caffeine and a nap." Her name was Natalie. She was a graphic designer and had a calmness that seemed to be the opposite of everything Marissa was. We talked for about 20 minutes right there, exchanged numbers, and I walked out of there feeling lighter than I had in months. Our first date was at a Thai restaurant downtown. Simple, nothing special, but I remember thinking how easily everything flowed. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. She didn't need to be the center of attention or turn every conversation into something about destiny or signs from the universe. Natalie was down to earth. She had her own life, her own friends, her own apartment on the other side of town. She didn't expect me to fill all her voids or solve all her problems. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like exactly what I needed. We started seeing each other frequently at first, twice a week, then more. Around the third month, I realized something that took me by surprise. I was happy, truly happy, in a way I couldn't remember being even before Marissa left. Natalie didn't play games, didn't test me, didn't force me to decipher silences or guess her feelings. That simplicity, after years of living on Marissa's emotional roller coaster, felt almost revolutionary. Without realizing it, I stopped checking Marissa's social media. I stopped wondering if she was still with Jared. I stopped replaying that morning in my head. For the first time since the breakup, I felt like I wasn't just surviving the days, but actually moving forward. Natalie met my brother and my friends, and they all said the same thing. She was good for me, stable, kind, real. One night, after dinner with us, my brother pulled me aside and said he hadn't seen me this calm in years. Maybe he had never seen me like this. That hit me harder than I expected because he was right. Around the 10th month, I started thinking about rings, about proposing, about building a future with someone who also wanted to build with me. And to my surprise, the idea didn't scare me. I took Natalie to the coast for a long weekend. We stayed in a small inn facing the ocean. On the last night, with the sun setting on the beach, I asked her to marry me. She said, yes, without hesitation, without drama, just pure joy. We told our families, started planning an engagement party, and chose a wedding date. I felt like I had finally closed the chapter on Marissa. She had become just a painful memory that somehow led me to something better. I even came to feel grateful in a strange way. Without that pain, I would never have learned what real stability was. I would never have noticed how exhausting it was to live managing someone else's emotions all the time. A year after Marissa left, I was engaged to someone who truly valued me, who didn't see love as a competition or a test from the universe. I thought that was the end of her role in my life. I was very wrong. The engagement party was going to be small. About 40 guests in an event space downtown with exposed beams and string lights. Nothing over the top, just close family and friends celebrating something that felt right. Natalie's mom helped with the planning. My brother was in charge of the music, and everything was perfect until it wasn't. I was near the bar talking to a cousin when I saw her walk in. For a second, I thought I was imagining things, as if my brain had conjured her image from unresolved anxiety. It was Marissa. She was wearing a cream-colored dress, the kind you might wear in a garden or maybe to someone else's wedding. The expression on her face was the worst part. She looked like she belonged there, as if she had been invited and was just running a little late. My stomach sank in a way that made me want to get sick right there next to the appetizer table. Natalie was on the other side of the room talking to her sister and hadn't seen anything yet. In that moment, I felt immediate panic. What was going to happen? How was this going to play out? I had to intercept Marissa before she made her way into the middle of the party. I started walking toward her, but Marissa was fast. She moved through the groups of guests as if she knew exactly where she was going. Before I got close, she had already grabbed a glass of champagne from a tray and positioned herself near the small stage we had set up for speeches. My brother saw her and shot me a look that said, "What the hell is this?" I just shook my head. I didn't have words yet, much less a plan. I was trying to process the fact that my ex-girlfriend had just shown up at my engagement party. She didn't come to talk to me. She didn't try to pull me into a private conversation. She just stood there, sipping champagne and observing everything. And the worst part was how comfortable she seemed, as if she were watching something that still concerned her, as if she had some right to this moment. Some guests recognized her. I saw the confused glances, the whispers, people trying to understand why my ex was there, dressed as if she were the star of the evening. My cousin came over and asked quietly if I wanted him to handle it, meaning, ask her to leave. I told him to wait, hoping she would just make a quick appearance and leave on her own. Natalie finally saw her. I noticed the exact moment she recognized Marissa. She came over to me, took my hand, and asked softly, "Is that Marissa?" I nodded. She squeezed my hand tightly and said the best thing to do was to ignore her, that Marissa would eventually leave on her own. But Marissa had no intention of leaving quietly. About 20 minutes later, my brother went up on stage to make a toast. He started talking about how happy he was for us, and then suddenly, I saw Marissa move toward the stage. She didn't ask for permission, didn't wait for an invitation. She simply walked up and took the microphone from my brother's hand, who just stood there, too shocked to react. The entire room fell silent. That kind of heavy, uncomfortable silence, where everyone senses something very bad is happening, but no one knows how to intervene yet. Marissa smiled at the guests as if she were about to announce good news, and began talking about love, about second chances, about how sometimes you make mistakes only to find your way back home. She said that true love doesn't give up, and that sometimes the universe tests us to see if we are strong enough to fight for what really matters. It was then, with a growing tightness in my chest, that I understood she wasn't there to apologize or just get attention. She was there to reclaim me, to announce publicly that I was still supposed to be hers. Natalie's hand gripped mine hard. I could feel her trembling, not with fear, but with anger, and I knew I needed to act before this got even more out of control. I walked up to the stage and held out my hand, asking for the microphone. Marissa hesitated. She looked at me with a hopeful expression, as if she believed I was going to agree with her, to validate this fantasy she had created. I took the microphone and looked at the people who were there to celebrate Natalie and me, people who had no idea what Marissa had put me through. And in that moment, I felt a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I turned to Marissa and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You once told me yourself that when you truly love someone, you have to be happy for them and their soulmate." She flinched as if I had struck her. I continued, "Natalie is my person. She is happy for me. And please get out of my life." The silence was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Marissa's face went through several emotions in a few seconds. Confusion, anger, humiliation, fury. She started screaming. She called me selfish, cruel. She said I had never understood her, that I never fought for her, that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I just stood there, holding the microphone as she fell apart, until I saw Natalie's father give a discreet signal to someone, and 2 security guards started approaching the stage. It was then that I recognized one of them, the taller one, with a shaved head and a radio on his belt. It was Jared. Apparently, he had started doing extra work at private events in addition to them all. The irony of the situation was so absurd, I almost laughed. Marissa saw him at the same instant I did, and something inside her just completely snapped. She lunged at him, literally lunged, beating her fists against his chest while screaming, "You were supposed to be different. You promised me forever." Jared looked mortified, trying to grab her wrists and maintain his professionalism while another guard rushed to help. Marissa was completely out of control now, screaming, spitting, scratching. She called Jared a failure, me a coward, and Natalie names not even worth repeating. They managed to restrain her arms and began escorting her to the exit as she struggled and shrieked. Everyone at the party watched in absolute silence. As they passed me, I saw Jared's face up close. I saw the exhaustion, the regret, and I understood that everything Marissa had promised him about destiny and soulmates had crumbled just like it did with me. For a second, our eyes met. There was something in his gaze that looked like an apology, as if he finally understood what I had been through. The door closed behind them. The room remained still for a few more seconds until my brother took the microphone and said, "Well, that wasn't in the script. Let's get back to celebrating these 2. A few people laughed nervously, and slowly, conversation started up again. Natalie pulled me into a hallway and asked if I was okay. And I realized I was. I really was. For the first time since Marissa left, I had chosen peace instead of trying to save her. I had chosen my future instead of her chaos. Natalie hugged me tightly and whispered that she was proud of me. I felt something release in my chest, a final residue of guilt for not having fought harder when Marissa left. We went back to the party and finished the night surrounded by people who truly loved us, who truly wanted to see us happy. When we got home, I held Natalie and felt gratitude for having let Marissa go, for not having fought for something that was already destroying me. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from an unknown number and a voicemail from Marissa, crying, saying I had humiliated her, that I had turned everyone against her, that I had ruined her life. I deleted it without listening to the end. I thought the worst was over, that the public humiliation would be enough to make her disappear forever. I thought we could finally move on without her shadow over us. I had no idea it was just beginning. I thought that after the disaster at the engagement party, Marissa would finally disappear, that being forcibly removed by security would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I received a call from a lawyer I didn't know, asking if I was aware of a lawsuit. Marissa had filed a suit against Jared and the security company he worked for, alleging excessive force, emotional distress, and physical assault, the whole package. She was asking for millions of dollars and presenting herself as a victim who was mishandled by aggressive guards at a private event. My first reaction was disbelief, then panic. Although my name wasn't on the lawsuit, I knew it could expand and drag Natalie and me into it, pulling us into depositions, court documents, and maybe even local media. I called Natalie immediately. She heard the stress in my voice and told me to breathe, that we would face it together, that Marissa would only have power if we gave it to her. But I was scared, genuinely scared. I had already seen what Marissa was capable of when she felt wronged, how she twisted stories, played the victim, and convinced people of her version of events. The security company hired a defense team, and shortly after, their lawyer contacted me. He wanted a statement about what happened that night, about Marissa's behavior before the incident, and whether I had seen her initiate contact with Jared first. I told them everything. I gave a written account. I described the entire night, from the moment she walked in uninvited to when she lunged at him. The lawyer seemed confident. He said the case was solid, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Marissa would find a way to win, to make everyone pay for her decisions. He mentioned that several other guests had also given statements confirming my version. That should have reassured me, but it had the opposite effect. Now more people were being pulled into Marissa's chaos. The lawsuit moved forward, and a preliminary hearing was set for early fall, about 4 months after the engagement party. During that time, I barely slept. I imagined the worst-case scenarios. Marissa winning millions, the story going viral, our wedding postponed or canceled due to the exposure, my job finding out, and questioning my judgment. My boss even called me in for a chat. He asked if everything was okay and why my performance had dropped. I had to explain the situation without sounding like I was in the middle of a daytime television drama. Natalie kept planning the wedding as if Marissa didn't exist. She moved forward with resolve, and I tried to follow her lead, but inside, I was falling apart. She was choosing flowers while I was thinking about court dates. She talked about the honeymoon while I was refreshing news sites, afraid of seeing the case in a headline. I started having nightmares about Marissa showing up at the wedding with new lawsuits, about this never ending. The day of the hearing finally arrived. Natalie and I sat side by side in the back of the courtroom as Marissa entered in a modest dress and minimal makeup, playing the part of the wounded innocent. She was with a lawyer who looked expensive, probably someone she convinced to take the case on contingency. He made the opening statement, talking about how his client had been approached without provocation, about lasting psychological trauma, about the company's failure to use appropriate force. Then the defense attorney stood up and mentioned that body cam footage had been submitted as evidence. My heart raced. I didn't know a video existed. The lawyer asked for the footage to be played. Suddenly, everyone in that courtroom saw exactly what happened. They saw Marissa lunging at Jared, spitting in his face, scratching his arms as he tried to back away and maintain a professional distance. On the audio, you could hear the screams, her calling him a failure, useless. Then, the two guards trying to restrain her as carefully as possible while she thrashed and kicked. The video lasted maybe 3 minutes, but it felt much longer. When it finished, the judge looked at Marissa's lawyer with an expression that said it all. Before the lawyer could react, Marissa stood up and started shouting that the video was edited, that it didn't show what happened before, that everyone was protecting each other. The judge ordered her to sit down and be quiet, threatening her with contempt of court. Her lawyer still tried to salvage something. He argued that although she was aggressive, the guards might have used excessive force. The judge wasn't buying it. He dismissed the case. Right then and there. He called it a frivolous lawsuit, a waste of the court's time, and then he did something I didn't expect. The judge ordered Marissa to pay the security company's legal fees and issued a formal reprimand that would go on her record. It was right there in the courtroom that she completely lost control. She started screaming about injustice, corruption, saying everyone was against her. The bailiff had to escort her out while she threatened Jared, the lawyers, and even the judge. I just sat there, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness, like someone who had been holding their breath for months and could finally exhale, but didn't know what to do next. After the hearing, the security company's lawyer told me they were considering suing her for defamation and abuse of the judicial system. I said I would help in any way necessary. Marissa's case wasn't just dismissed, it was recorded as a loss with penalties, which meant legal debts she couldn't pay and a record that made her look unstable and litigious. About a month later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had been fired from the daycare where she worked. From what they said, the lawsuit and the public scandal made the parents uncomfortable, and the administration decided she was a liability. One of the parents had apparently seen a video of the engagement party incident that someone had uploaded to the internet, and that was enough to cast doubt on her judgment around children. Then more news came. She had moved back in with her parents on the other side of the city. Jared had blocked her on everything and gotten a restraining order after she showed up at his apartment several times. Finally, I learned she was working as a cleaner in a downtown office building. A part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, to celebrate her downfall, but most of the time, I just felt tired, relieved that the chaos was finally over. Natalie and I got married in December in a small ceremony with reinforced security and a private guest list. No drama, no surprises, just two people promising to build something stable together. The venue was given clear instructions about Marissa, with a photo provided to the security team. I hated having to take that kind of precaution, but it was necessary. We bought a house in the suburbs, adopted a dog, and started talking about kids. I realized I had completely stopped thinking about Marissa, except as a cautionary tale I might tell one day. The last I heard, she was still at that cleaning job, still living with her parents, still posting cryptic social media posts about betrayal and karma. A friend once sent me a screenshot of her talking about fighting for love. I didn't even feel anger, just a quiet sadness that she had set her own life on fire chasing a fantasy about destiny and soulmates. Natalie got pregnant in early 2024, and our daughter was born this November. Holding that baby in the hospital, I thought about how different my life would have been if Marissa hadn't left. If I had stayed in that relationship and ended up marrying her, I would have been miserable. Always managing her moods, waiting for the next crisis, walking on eggshells around someone who saw everything as a test of loyalty. She used to say she just wanted to fight for love, follow her heart, be happy. But love doesn't look like destruction. Real love looks like Natalie sleeping on the couch while feeding our daughter at 3 in the morning. It looks like building something quiet and lasting. It looks like choosing someone every single day, without drama, without signs from the universe. Marissa taught me exactly what I didn't want, and for that, maybe I should be grateful. But I will never understand how someone can mistake chaos for passion, obsession for destiny, and destroy everything around them while calling it love. Comment. What I really hope you take away from this is the profound power of choosing your own peace. It is not selfish to build a boundary where a storm used to be. In fact, it is the highest form of self-respect. True partnership should feel like a safe harbor, not a battlefield. We cannot control how others act, but we are always in control of the door to our own lives. We get to decide who we let in and who we must ask to leave. Healing often begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Be kind to yourself through that process, because you are unlearning patterns that once felt like love. I hope you find the quiet strength to choose stability, to choose kindness, and to build a life that truly nurtures you. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.